talking business to Kimra Major Morris. She's an attorney, intellectual property law. I'm very excited to talk to her because this is something I've always been intrigued by, just by the nature of my profession, and something I've known a little bit about. So hopefully today we'll get really in the business. So without further ado, I'd like for you to meet Kimra Major Morris.
And your audience on here. It's a privilege. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, I can. Maybe go over just a little bit to the right. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. As I've shared with everyone, this is an unprecedented time when it comes to small business. Yeah. And so I'm really asking other small businesses how they are rethinking their pivot plan. And I would imagine for you, this is just a different place in space. So when Yvette called me and was like, would you like to? Yes, absolutely. I think this will be a perfect show. Let me start by, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am Kimra Major Morris. I am a Florida licensed attorney representing national and international brands for their intellectual property needs. Intellectual property covers 4 areas: copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, and patents. I'm not a patent attorney. However, I am in the business of helping businesses protect their brand identity. We protect our personal identity all the time, but not enough emphasis goes on the brand identity.
Okay.
So originally from Delaware, I'm a FAMU law graduate.
Okay. Actually, my mom was a Rattler. My mom and dad were Rattlers.
Yeah.
So I grew up going to the homecomings.
What else can I tell you? So I've got 2 daughters. My daughters are in the arts. And so one's a dancer out in the LA area. The younger one is a student at SCAD. She's an art student.
Okay.
And like a lot of people, I've been working remotely anyway. I'm a caregiver to both of my parents. So we have a full house. So
are you a sober? are you the only employee in your company?
Yes and no. I am the primary person.
Okay.
I'm 100% owner of my firm, but I do use virtual assistants from time to time.
Okay. Now, did you get into this arena because of your children, or this was sort of a passion for you already and you are now able to help them as they maneuver through this industry?
Well, I had an unorthodox path to law. I started off as a young, how old was I? 20. Actually, I was probably 19 when I started in music as a hip hop artist.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
A lot of people now. But I was having a good time. I moved to New York and worked with Professor Griff as a producer. Betty Wright was my vocal coach. I had some opportunities, music conferences and whatnot. And then I became a mom. But while I was doing my music, I was either in school or had graduated and was still doing it. So my major was television broadcast.
Okay.
And the equipment changed. So I went to school. I loved video editing and to edit tape to tape. And by the time I graduated, the equipment had changed. Everything was on digital.
Exactly.
So I graduated, thinking that I was going to have some experience with the internship. I was interning at Channel 2 in Miami. And all the stuff I learned was obsolete. So HBO gave me an opportunity. Before that, I worked, some jobs in the music business, worked for Bobby Brown. I was doing promotions.
Very cool.
Level position at CNN. So I did a bunch of stuff before I decided to go to law school. So there was a almost 14-year gap between my undergraduate graduation. I graduated from FIU. And the time that I decided to go into law. And the main reason I went into law was because there was just so much instability in the entertainment and media industries. I was working at a station, CSN, the Caribbean Satellite Network. And my shift was a midnight shift. And somebody said, well, you know what? Don't bother coming in later because we're going off the air. And just like that. So,
like, really? I don't have a job? I got mouths to feed?
Similarly, you know, when I was working for Bobby, you know, sometimes, you know, when you work directly with an artist, you know, no, but sometimes they're going through something on a personal level and it can disrupt. And so that happened. And so I said, you know what? I really like working around creative people, and I could see that I can be instrumental.
Did you learn a lot of things in the music industry that now informs how you operate in this arena? I don't have much experience with the music industry, but some experience with the film industry. And I've heard, you know, the music industry can definitely be challenging if you're not on top of your business game.
Oh, absolutely. So you write a song, you know, you might sign with the wrong group. So you learn contract law pretty quickly in the music business. So that I had that experience. And also while I was in school, when I started working at HBO, it was HBO Latin America. And a lot of my coworkers were from Brazil and other parts of South America or the Latin American countries. And so they had side jobs. And so they kind of opened my eyes to entrepreneurship. Because although we were full-time editors or people in production for the company, a lot of people had just laptops and professional cameras and would go out and do jobs. And so I started freelancing. I started doing red carpet things for BET, Soul Train Awards, music awards. And so I maintained my contacts in the industry through the production jobs I was getting.
Very cool.
You know, so I would kind of know what was going on in the industry anyway, just because of my relationships. But I definitely learned a lot about contract law and issues that are directly affecting the creative community. So that's what made me want to go into, well, I thought I was originally going into entertainment law specifically. And after starting my practice, you know, I'm in Orlando. And this is not exactly a booming city. You got but you have major labels here. And so I pivoted and said, well, intellectual property will allow me to appeal more to the people in tech, business owners, and also I'm still taking entertainment clients. So when I get a music contract or something like that, then I'm happy to do it. But the traffic for that, this is not the market.
It's very interesting you bringing that up because I'm a little familiar with intellectual property just because I'm a screenwriter. I remember being in a workshop sort of around the onset of when this whole social media, online, internet really exploded. And I remember a lawyer in the room who talked a lot about this platform has sort of set that legal arena on its head. You really had to completely change how you operated. So I guess I have two questions I'm about to ask. One, can you explain a little bit of the differences of what intellectual law is as opposed to, as you mentioned, entertainment law? And then was that the shift then? Was that when there was that big pivot in this industry that really opened up what intellectual property is?
Great question. Okay, so I'll answer the first part. Intellectual property law, the practice of it deals with these umbrellas: copyright, trademark, trade secrets, and patents. And in the entertainment business, one of the primary things you're dealing with is copyright law. In the film industry, you're primarily dealing with copyright law. So these things intersect. And so I would not say that that's when the shift occurred. We have definitely more work to do now with the advances in technology. Computer apps have been big. I get a lot of clients who are launching products in that space. And then the more technology changes, the more we have to look at, and the more sports and entertainment changes. Look at the electronic games or the video games that are featuring people, and they're, you got the subject of publicity rights and their copyright for using names and likenesses. So I would definitely say that because of the way the technical space has changed, the way it touches sports and entertainment actors or participants is different. And it causes us to look at the law and say, well, can they do that? You know, what
Right.
are we and aren't we allowed to do with this new technology?
Right. And I can imagine that whole, you mentioned the image aspect. Are there any examples of where you've had to fight for people's image, especially a celebrity who, once they put their image out there, you know, is it public domain, or are you talking about this person's face and name? You know,
Right.
that battle. Have you ever been in?
I have not represented people who are dealing with that issue. What I do get a lot of is the brand theft. You know, when people have apparel lines, or they have, you know, their music has been heavily borrowed.
Yes.
Or, you know, heavily borrowed. And so, you know, I get those people who have not given their consent. And, you know, while we say imitation is the best form of flattery, we also have to feed our families. And so
Exactly.
we get permission. One of the areas that I also handle is church copyright law. Religious organizations, people don't even think about that. We are, we can perform music in religious services. However, and it's actually a part of the law. It's called the religious service exemption, where you can perform these things and you don't need a license if you're in a place of worship. That's what the law says. Okay. Well, the technology has given us the ability to stream our services. And so streaming services is taking you outside of the exemption, and then you need a license just like the people at the club.
So if I'm in a choir singing a song, streaming from my church, that's a law. That's crossing.
Streaming. That's right. So because you're being taken outside of the religious, the house of worship. So now on the internet, it's a public performance.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know what? I have to agree with you. As a creative, you know, you watch a lot of times people just sort of, I'm often in events and activities where people will stream complete concerts. And I just feel like that's inappropriate.
Right.
Because this person is working hard up there for our entertainment. And so that's very interesting that you were saying that we need to really start to vet that.
Right.
It's just insulting to me. So I'm just like,
yeah, I mean, you know what? You'd be surprised at the way people approach it, you know, because a lot of times people say, well, you know, people will flip it and say, just like for the nonprofits, the people who think that they're not supposed to pay royalties for the use of certain intellectual property because it's for a charitable cause. Right. That's the feedback that I get when I do these seminars for religious organizations. Well, it's for a good cause, and, you know, this is our way of spreading the ministry. And so, you know, my little way of demonstrating that's not acceptable is to say, well, if I took your wallet and gave it to a homeless person, you know,
that's good,
but it's not okay.
You're gonna have a problem with me.
So, you know,
very good point. Very good.
For nonprofits, that is a question I get often: is, do we have to pay for this because it's for a charitable cause? And the answer is yes. One of the things that I did on my path a few years ago, in 2012, I started working with Trayvon Martin's family.
Okay.
And when they started the foundation. And so, of course, there were a lot of people who were using Trayvon's name and likeness.
You're right.
And that, you know, of course, they were trying to show their support. A lot of people did not have, you know, nefarious reasons for putting his face on a T-shirt and selling it. They really thought they were showing support, you know, if it's one or two. But then you had people also opening whole stores. You know, we had people naming schools after Trayvon, and they would come back and say, well, it's for to raise awareness. But no, I mean, so you know, sometimes you just have to put yourself in the other people's position. But this is not, you know, I tell people all the time, it's not common sense law. It is something that, you know, somebody has to explain the reason why it's not okay. And so as a copyright owner, you have exclusive rights. As a trademark owner, you're going to have some exclusive rights. And so some familiarity with intellectual property law is helpful. It's just not common knowledge.
So now, I just had this conversation with something in terms of product with regards to a food type product, or I have a friend who asked me to ask, is it time for him to protect his recipes for a product that is a mixer? And, very good product, by the way. We'll have him on the show soon.
Okay.
But is that also fall under intellectual property? I thought that was another type of law, but would that also fall under this arena?
It does.
Okay.
One of the things, well, I'm going to say the way he writes his recipe, expresses the way that his food is made is potentially covered by copyright law.
Okay.
If he has a process or some formula that is not disclosed, is not generally known to the public, then it's potentially a trade secret. Look at Pepsi and Coca-Cola. These companies have recipes. We know that this is a carbonated drink, but we don't know how to make it.
Right.
We know fried chicken, but we don't know their process. And so those are trade secrets. But then you have people who just write recipes. And, I like to make smoothies. And so my smoothie is not particularly, I think it's special, but,
there's nothing you're doing any different.
Have the same recipe. But if I write it down as a rap, and this is how I make my smoothie, and it rhymes, then that's protectable by copyright. So it just has to be an original work of original authorship.
Okay.
There's some level of creativity is required. Okay. And so your friend who is, has the cookbook or, these recipes, the way you package them, the way you express it, the way you put it in writing or put it in a tangible form is potentially protectable by copyright.
Okay. And that would be something that they would have to come to you to find out. Is it, is this just something you mixed up in your kitchen?
That would be nice.
It's a mix it is got something different to it. But first I gotta try it. Then we gotta see.
So what you need to do, what people need to understand is putting it in a tangible form, because a lot of times you will hear people say, that was my idea. I talked to them about that. That was my idea. But for copyright, you have to have it in a tangible form. So that means written. Where is it written? Where was it recorded? Recorded the conversation, and this idea came from you. So that's one of the things that's important, especially in the entertainment business. When you have these fresh ideas, have a non-disclosure agreement ready for someone to sign. If you're going for a meeting, send them an email and say, this is to confirm that, or a text message. It doesn't have to be formal. This is to confirm that we're meeting for the purpose of discussing my confidential idea, and have them sign it. That way you have some sort of a timestamp as to when you had this discussion that, or for the idea that was stolen.
It's funny you talk about NDAs, and actually I'm going to bring out some tips that I understand you shared in the South Florida Caribbean News. NDAs I've been a fan of for many, many moons. But at one point there was sort of this conversation about you still aren't necessarily protected. But I am always in a creative space. I'm always like, you know what, just as long as there's a human being that can validate and verify that I had this conversation with you, we're going to receive it.
So what I try to do is, nothing is 100% guaranteed. So, we can't guarantee people's protections, but what we can do is move responsibly when we have something of value. And so if you are getting someone to sign off on the confidentiality requirement, and you happen to have an idea or something that you registered with the Copyright Office, if they steal it, then you have two potential causes of action. You have the copyright infringement piece, and then you're going to have the breach of confidentiality piece.
Right.
And so it's better to have more arguments against, the infringer than less. So,
right. And that was a common conversation in several of the screenwriting workshops that I took. They like to cite a lot the Coming to America case, where the gentleman was able to prove he'd written it, because what was said is the the scene where Eddie Murphy flips the globe and says, "I'm going to Queens and find my queen." Nobody would have thought of that.
Right.
It was sort of, and he protected it with the WGA and copyrighted it. So it was after that, like every screenwriter I know was all over that.
I'm glad you said both, because for the screenwriters watching, a lot of times the screenwriters and people in film think that registering their work with the WGA is enough. It is not. It is not the same as the copyright registration. What it is a timestamp. It's telling people that this is when I submitted it, but it's not, you still can't go to court with that. And so you still need your copyright registration. You're going to miss out on potential statutory damages for copyright infringement. And you can, so if I guess a perfect scenario, if somebody writes a script and then they just submit it to the WGA and then they find out that someone has infringed. And in order to sue someone, you have to file the copyright registration anyway. So then they file the copyright registration after they learned of the infringement, but by filing it after the infringement occurred, then you miss the opportunity for the statutory damages.
Wow.
Fancy for more money. So that's $750 and potentially to $30,000 per act of infringement. You don't get that just because you didn't do it on the front end. So
wow, because I mean, I do it just because I was told I was supposed to do it, but I didn't realize.
This is why this is the PSA.
Right. All creative. Pay attention.
Yeah.
So I want to go really quickly into the tips, and I hope everybody can see this. I was going to try to read it. Let me see. I'll put it on here. Not the whole thing. I won't read the whole thing, but just kind of throw out some of the tips. Let me see. Hold on one second here. I wasn't prepared. Just the first line of each one of the tips, especially now with COVID. And then I kind of want to, if you could kind of expound on each one of them, especially during this time. How do you see some of this changing now with COVID in this industry? One of the first things you said was identify intellectual property assets. You cannot protect what you don't know you have.
Right. So, I mean, get an appraisal. That's what people do, right? Before they sell a home, they find out what the value is. And so you might want to have somebody who knows what they're looking at to come and look at what you have in your business.
Okay.
If you have intellectual property that you haven't identified, whatever your website is doing, your blog, have you registered that with the Copyright Office? If you're a web designer, all those designs that you tailored for people, what does your contract say? Do they own it? Do you own it? So you just want to look and take a survey of what it is you actually have as a business owner, and then get the federal registrations, which is the other tip. So first you want to identify what you have, and then once you know what you have, then take the steps to register, apply for those federal registrations. Because, for example, where so many people now are just suddenly forced into this remote work life, right?
Right.
Well, it's not new to me, but for somebody that is new to, now all of a sudden you have to pay attention to what you're posting, and under what logo, under what business name. And then for the people who are brand new, they're going to apply for the social media handles they're trying to see, and they're already taken. And then you discover that there's a business out there that has a similar name or look and feel as yours for the same or similar products and services. That's not a good way to find out.
Yeah, that's true.
But a lot of people are discovering that. So what do? If you have superior trademark rights, then you might want to, have a consultation with an attorney to get them to look at, the dates of use. Did you start using it first? Can you send them a cease and desist notice? You don't know. It's not an automatic, it's not an obvious answer. So you do need somebody to look at that. But for the people who are launching things now, because, we have to pivot during this time, what you were doing, we may have to pivot. So what you were doing before may not be working. And if you're about to launch something, one of the most important things you can do is start right. Look at the long term. Don't just go on, and we're in Florida, don't just go on Sunbiz and say, you know what, my name, I looked it up, it's not taken, and start a business. You don't want to do that, because there are how many other states? and they're global brands. So why would you just have tunnel vision like that for your business? And then you're going to go to the bank and start a banking, your checking account with this name. And maybe a month later, you'll get a cease and desist notice, and then you have to start all over again. It's embarrassing too. So not only is it expensive, but it's just not a good professional look.
So if you're looking at a global business, it's a good idea not to just go through Sunbiz, but to go through an attorney who can do and vet a wider look. Okay.
The reason is because when you go to Sunbiz, the only thing they're telling you is, yes, Stephanie, you can do business under this name in the state of Florida. But they're also saying, if you read the fine print, we're not taking any responsibility for the fact that you might have been able to get this registered with Florida. We don't know what's going on in the other states. Gotcha. That's on you. So, and it is. So, because there could be a business with the spelling could be different. There could be another word. So if I say the name of my business is Kimra's Corner, and then in Georgia, there's a Kimra's Block, but we're both attorneys. Right. It's not gonna work. So they don't have to be identical.
Wow, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Oh, see, I'm learning some stuff. I hope y'all are too.
Yeah.
Second, you say apply for intellectual property registration. Copyrights, trademarks, patents, and trade secrets are federally protected. Yeah. You talked about it a little bit before, but if you'll just expound a little bit, more about.
So copyrights protect the creative works. It has to be an original work of authorship. So that's your songs, your literary stuff, sculptures, music. Those things are falling under copyright protection.
But how about an idea?
An idea is still in your head, so you can't register anything in your head. So you don't know what it turns out to be if it's an idea for a business. Let me finish. So that's the copyright space. And trademarks, that's your brand identity space. So trademarks can be business names, business logos, slogans, taglines, symbols, sounds. NBC has a sound. It can be a smell. So those things identify your brand. Trade secrets we talked about briefly. Mm-hmm. These are things that are your processes. That's your secret sauce.
Okay.
What makes your business stand out? It could be your mailing list. So if you have somebody working for you virtually and your mailing list is the thing that gives your business an advantage, then you should have somebody sign off on a confidentiality agreement that's going to remain proprietary and undisclosed information.
Okay.
So the trade secrets you don't register, but you do have to take steps to keep them a secret. And then finally, the patents. Those are your processes and your formulas. It could be something scientific, something with a utility function, something in technology. But those things they're good for 20 years and then they're in the public domain. They're good for the life of the author plus 70 years before they're in the public domain. And trademarks have to be renewed every 10 years on the federal level. And on the state level here in Florida, you can have a state trademark and have to renew it every 5 years. But big difference in the coverage that you're going to get between the state and the federal.
Correct. Let's see. We are on. I thought this one was very interesting because I'm right now thinking about this. Okay. If you are hiring a virtual assistant, be clear on what the assistant's work product includes.
Yes.
That never occurred to me. I was like, thank goodness you sent this to me.
Because just think about it. So let's say you have an intern, your intern is cross country because they were cheap, okay? Or out of the country. What are the duties? And you say, I want you to help me organize. I want you to help me do some research. I want you to rewrite the copy on my website. And when the person finishes, what if they say, wow, you know what? This is really good information. These statistics I pulled for Stephanie, all this research, I could use this and take it to somebody else who does what Stephanie does. So you want to identify in your agreement with the contractor, with the virtual assistant, that, this is the work product. This is what I'm hiring you to do. And when we finish, I'm the owner of this information.
Right.
I'm the owner of this creative work. So that's really important. Otherwise, it could be flipped on you and used against you.
Right. Okay, let's see. Let me cancel that so I can go to the next one. Okay. Be sure to include warranties and representations in the agreement that protect you in the event the assistance work is violating a third party's intellectual property rights.
Mm-hmm. Well, we see this all the time, especially in entertainment. How many times has a movie come out, even Black Panther when it came out, and there was the headline that a sculpture that was in the video was taken from the artist. They tried to negotiate, and that ended up being settled. But, or it happens a lot, especially in music videos, or even if the person is your web designer, you have these beautiful graphics, these beautiful pictures, and you don't even know where they came from. You don't even ask. You just assume that the person you hired is in compliance, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, the warranties and representations will help you to at least have a layer between your company and the person that they may have been stolen from.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Okay, so example, you hire somebody to do your website. They have these beautiful pictures. Weeks later, you get a cease and desist notice saying that your pictures are stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures are unauthorized use. You have infringed on somebody's copyright. And here, see the attachment is a picture of the copyright registration. And now you have to pay $3,800. Okay?
And change the photos. Get a new web developer to change everything.
So these are strict liability laws. They're showing you the copyright registration. They're showing you that you were not authorized to use it. So what do? You're going to go back to your paperwork with the web designer, and it says nothing about who's responsible if something like this happens. So that's why one of my tips is to have the warranties and representations. That way, that at least that person's going to take some responsibility for any infringing content that they deliver to you.
Okay, good. I always subscribe to the idea that I provide my own content. That way I have very little to, if I have to buy it, then I buy it. But other than that, I try to provide my own content. The last but not least was the one I was just all excited about. Don't underestimate the value of a non-disclosure agreement.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about, is that when you're in these meetings, and a lot of times now we have these pitch contests. What are you signing before you go in? Or what aren't you signing is a better question. If you just stood up in the audience and said, "This is my idea,"
right
there, and there's nothing you can do about it. So a non-disclosure agreement will at least help you to say, to confront someone and say, you knew that this was confidential, and it was not to be shared, and you're going to be responsible, and you could potentially get some money for the breach in confidentiality. But if you don't have that, it really is, you're at a complete loss.
Okay. Don't worry, everyone. I will share these tips with you as well, because it's very good information to know. Now, since I've probed you about what you know, I want to talk to you a little bit about your personal business.
Okay.
Have you, how are you faring right now? I would imagine, as you mentioned, it's not been a really big transition for you to go to an online platform, right. But I'd imagine clients that are in this area of arts and film and music and might be lacking in money right now. So are you that's not been a challenge for you, or?
Well, this business is certainly a little slower. Excuse me. I represent some nonprofits. I represent artists. As you said, the small business owners are generally not in a position to take advantage of this time. Of course, you see a lot of, and so in many ways, this is a time for me to be able to be creative.
Right.
So I am still busy. I represent some professional athletes and some people, and so they may have things in bulk, multiple months at a time. The research still needs to be there. I've been enjoying sharing information, so it's a time where I can sort of slow down. I did a webinar yesterday for the Central Florida African American Chamber of Commerce. So I enjoy what's happening right now. I'm enjoying it because I definitely feel a little less rushed. And what else can I tell you? I don't have as much online content as I would like to have. I don't post as much, not because I don't think it's important, but a lot of times I think that should be delegated.
To somebody else didn't know how to do that.
I post on there, and because I'm a social person, but there is a language and there's a science to this stuff, and I have not really taken the time to figure that out. I do enjoy Facebook and posting, so I like to write. So I usually have this goal that I'm going to write or have a legal article published, at least once every 2 years. And so this is about the time of year when I start thinking about the topic that I want to really dig into. So I'm not bored.
You got stuff to do.
Yeah.
You got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And
I'm the youngest I have 2 older brothers, and my mother was a school teacher. She's retired now. But I remember as a child when I used to say, well, I'm bored, because my brothers are 4 and 5 years older than me. And she would say, well, that's because you're boring. She was a little thing. She would say, look at these coloring books and look at these blah, blah, blah. And, she would point out all these things that I didn't think of. And so it's funny because now as an adult, I look back at that and say, well, maybe, because I can't remember the last time I could say I was bored.
Right.
But she definitely helped me to find constructive things to do at a young age. So that's
definitely transitioned very well to that. You can say
anybody else is boring because they're bored, but that's what my mom used to tell me.
Look, my grandmother was like, go read somewhere, do something.
Right.
There's something you can do. But that's interesting. You talk about the writing piece. I noticed you wrote an article for the South Florida Caribbean News. Have you thought about this? During this time, I would imagine there's going to be another change in how intellectual property law operates. Have you in your industry thought about that? And is this a time for you to sort of be at the forefront of seeing that change happen? And
I think well, I don't know much that intellectual property, the space itself is going to change, but I do hope that more people become aware of what this space is all about. And so, I don't think that people are going to have as much of a choice as they've had, because when you're self-employed, then you really do, you don't really have as much room to, because these are a lot of times the business's most valuable asset. Your business name and logo, that's the same as your reputation, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we see different symbols, we react in a way. So what is your reaction when you see an Apple symbol, a Microsoft symbol? So it brings about certain feelings of whether you're going to respect this company, do you trust it? And so your brand identity really does mean something. And so once people start making that association and understanding that without a trademark registration, you're kind of leaving it up in the air. You're not going to be able to control your business reputation as much. If I see a copycat on Instagram, then I can show them a trademark certificate and it gets taken down almost immediately.
Right.
Then it gets left out there. And so your customers might be confused because there's a copycat and there's nothing you can do about it. So you want to establish that goodwill and that good reputation with your base. And one of the ways you can control that is with with the trademark registration.
Right.
Same with your content. If you have a blog, you're writing, you're trying to tell people that I'm an expert in this space, and then someone else has something really similar, but you don't have a copyright registration, you can confront them, but the time and expense is going to be a much longer process than something more straightforward if you have a registration.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Let's see. I know I had some other stuff here. What are you feeling about, I know you mentioned you didn't feel like the industry would change, but the clients that you're working with, I know many of them are doing some different things. I like to cite the D-Nice party. That was the biggest party of the century, and I missed it, of course.
Well, it's going on. So I
heard it's like nonstop, and people just see celebrities and important people coming in and out.
That's awesome.
So I feel like there's going to be a change in the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Platform. And I understand, he was able to use this, Facebook platform to pass the hat and, it's a revenue maker. So
I'm so happy for him. So way back, so I'm dating myself now, but in the early 90s, I met Derek, now known as Too Nice, when he was a rapper and with Boogie Down Productions. And so seeing him change over the years. He's a photographer, he upped his game with the DJing, of course, and he's a humble guy, but that's a perfect example. And he did do a trademark application. These applications take 6 to 12 months to finalize, and there is a club quarantine trademark application that's pending.
Oh, cool. So he's protected.
Well, he's protected and for what he's doing. So it's awesome. And so that's a great example that you're taking something online. This is a great time for the creative community, in my opinion, because just look at the happiness he brought.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
And so, still talking about it.
Yeah. And some of us are probably not used to appreciating a DJ until it's time to go to a party. But if you're stuck in the house and you can appreciate this gift now, right? This ability to make people feel a certain way. So I've seen dance teachers, all kinds of artistic people.
That's true.
Free painting. And so now we can really, I think, not that I appreciated art before, but many people who might have overlooked just how valuable it is to this therapy.
Absolutely. This is a time when people are exploring different things. I have a friend, I dance is one of my, ballroom dancing is one of my fun things to do. And a friend of mine was like, this was my chance to learn how to ballroom dance. So it is a great time for creatives, but also a time for creatives to really think through, as you mentioned, really go through your assets and see what needs to be protected. And, it's just better for everybody involved, I think, if you just know where things lie.
And I think it's a good time for teachers, just teachers that teachers are undervalued. And
absolutely,
so many people are craving information. And they're like, what can I learn now? What kind of certificate should I go for? And look how important teachers are.
Absolutely. I was talking to parents, and all of them are like, I don't want to go back to second grade.
Yeah, right. So my kids are grown, but I've been thinking about the clients and people who are at home with their children. So,
absolutely.
So it's an interesting time. But
how's your daughter doing in LA with the dancing? Has she been able to?
She's doing well. So she's a marketing major. Thanks for asking. And she's just learning things. So she's taking time to get a couple of certificates already during this time.
Good.
Free courses.
Good. Very good. I'm always worried about creative people. I consider myself one. Well, I thank you so much for coming on today. I think you've been a wealth of information, for those of us who are really just trying to figure it out right now. And like you said, I feel like it's a perfect time to do so, to get your pivot plan in place. We've talked a lot on this show about having an emergency plan. I think this is a great time for artists and creatives.
Like an online course, yeah.
Exactly, to really start putting those things into place and executing them and making sure they're prepared. So, because you learn a lot during this time, for sure. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I might be calling you later for some legal service. Stay tuned. So thanks again, and we will talk to you at a later time.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. So thank you. We were able to have an expert in intellectual property law. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot, and I got to be honest. Some of these shows are about me learning stuff too. So thank you again, Kimra. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, join us again. We're going to talk to Ludney Thompson. She is the owner of CC Loves Hair Curls Studio. the beauty industry. And I know right now, a lot of us are having problems with that beauty situation. So definitely tune in. I know she's going to be a wealth of information about what we can do and what that industry is going through at this time. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.